Man, it's going to be a hell of a fight. Two tremendous fighters, two highly respected fighters that I respect, but with this fight, I had to go with Errol Spence on it. Earl is my guy. Not only is a great fighter and a guy of my stable, but he's always have supported me through thick and thin. And when you have that love and support from somebody like him, and continue to do so no matter what, you must return the love. And that's what it's all about. Win, lose, or draw, you gotta support who you support. I follows my heart on all things, and my heart is with Earl. His heart is always with me. I have nothing against anyone else or against Terence. I wish the best for him. But on that fight, I gotta go with my my guy Errol Spence on that one. It's gonna be an amazing fight. That's gonna be a fight that I'll definitely be there to witness and see who wins. But at the end of the day, I hope those guys come out with a lot of success on both halves, and just be an ultimate great fight, something for the history books that we can remember and talk about for years to come.
What do you like about the Spence Crawford matchup?
It's a really good fight. Two great fighters. I think it's gonna be a really good fight. I think, no disrespect, but I pick Crawford.
What are you ready for them? Huh? Jerron Ennis, is he ready for them?
I don't think so. They're so good.
Philadelphia,
you need to wait.
more experience.
Don't be carried.
What makes you think that Crawford's going to win? What do you like about Crawford?
He have a lot of skill. Power. I think he's really a smart fighter.
How do you see the fight playing out with Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford?
I feel like Errol's he's just gonna do what he does. He's gonna put that pressure on him. And he's start getting to him in the later rounds. It's gonna be a good fight, but I think Spence obviously gonna win by decision. I think by unanimous. We'll see. It's gonna be good. I mean, Terrence's a bad man too, but I got Errol. So.
Well, what a year for boxing, and you certainly started that with your matchup against Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, we set the tone. Now it's ready. Boxing is gonna keep elevating from here. Everybody knows the new blueprint now. Make the fights happen. Big money's coming, and that's it. That's how you make money, and that's how you make the fans happy. Just give them what they want.
Crawford versus Spence.
Oh, that's going to be a good one, man. And I like both of them, but I don't know. I kind of feel Crawford has that style where it's difficult, I think he could box around, he could move around, he could be lefty as well if he wants to. And especially, I love his family, man. His mom and his dad, they're such good people, and I'm rooting for Crawford.
Hey, yeah, you mentioned it, Spence Crawford, bro. Break that down for us, man. Who do you see as the guy coming out with their hand raised on that night?
It's a good question, man. I've been getting asked this, and I still to this day get I'm like, man, it's still hard. It's still a hard decision, but part of me sides with Spence. Only reason why being he's good at body placements, body shots, very good, accurate with them. He knows when to throw them, and southpaw. He's a little bit more tall, lanky. I think that he'll read Crawford a bit more, in the sense, and also on top of it, he has the ring generalship. That he has the experience. He's faced top calibrated fighters. He's collected each belt from each one. And I think he has shown adversity. Not saying that Terence Crawford doesn't show that, just stating off at his end. What Crawford does is a very dangerous type of deal that you got to deal with. He's ambidextrous. He goes southpaw, goes orthodox. He's able to counter when you're throwing midway. So it's a great matchup, great fight. Crawford's a bit chinny, but to what extent, right? To what extent? So, Spence is the bigger guy at 47. I think he's a bit stronger than Crawford, but Crawford is just his body's growing into that division a lot more. But I just go off of the competition Spence and Crawford have gone through. I think Spence has gone through tougher competition. But I like both fighters. I think Crawford is a tremendous athlete, tremendous fighter. He does things in the ring that no one has really ever seen in boxing. So it's going to be a great fight. I know for a fact, though, one thing's for sure, that this fight's not going to go to distance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this fight definitely won't go to distance. Both those guys do have a dog in them. Definitely got something to prove. Crawford has a little bit more to prove because he'll be supposedly, he will be the first guy to be a 2-time undisputed world champion in 2 weight divisions, with this win, and also beating the guy that holds all the belts mainly. So it's a great matchup.
Do you see at all one thing that separates either or fighter in this fight?
What's going to separate is going to be conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Conditioning and the effective amount of punches with the jab. Yeah, the jab. Because Crawford likes to throw his jabs. That's how he finds his range, and then he picks you apart. Spence likes to throw his jabs. I mean, that's where he gets his range as well. So it's just who's going to dominate the jab part. That's whoever breaks that shell first is going to be the dictator of the winner that night. Yeah.
If I were to give you $100, who would you bet it on?
I gotta go with Spence.
With Spence? Yeah.
Yeah. I may lose my money though. But
George Kambosos, man, can you break down this Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight? What are the keys for both fighters to get victory?
It's a hell of a fight, man. It's a 50-50 fight. I'm always continually going back and forth with myself, thinking, Spence does that well, he can get the edge on Crawford. Then, no, Crawford does that well, he can get the edge on Spence. Both guys are tremendous fighters, and that's why it's such an intriguing fight. I really can't pick one. I really can't pick who's going to win this fight, and that's what's going to drive the fans towards this kind of fight. Spence is such a good body puncher. He's big, he's strong, he holds that defense nice and tight, but he did get caught by Ugas in a couple of his fights ago. He got caught. It looked like he got hurt, but then again, Crawford, such a good switch hitter, can hurt you from any position. But again, you've seen in his career as well, he's been hurt, and he did get dropped by that Cal Vasquez or whatever his name was.
And Gamboa, he was hurt too.
Gamboa hurt too, but you know what? Things have changed, obviously, back then. What's the age? Crawford's a little bit older.
Yeah, I think he's like 35, 36.
Yeah, that could come into play, but again, Crawford is an absolute beast, man. And so is Spence. I really can't give a prediction. I think it's going to be a great battle. I think it's going to go down to the wire. I don't think anyone's going to knock each other out. I think it's going to be a real tit-for-tat kind of fight. And, big respect to both guys. I think both guys are tremendous fighters, and, I'm excited to watch it. July 22 myself, and July 29.
You're a week before.
Yes, I know. So I got to, I'm
make it over there to Vegas.
Look, I'm a big name, but I'm the entree compared to that. Look, I say it the way it is. I'm real, and I'm the entree compared to that kind of fight. But I'll be back to that level again. I've been at that level not so long ago. So bring on Crawford and Spence Crawford, whatever way you want to say it. I'm excited.
How does one separate themselves in that fight?
I think when it comes to such a high-level fight, it's that war of attrition. That who wants it that much more? Who's going to put in the extra, not 1%, but 0.1% in the gym? Go that extra mile. That's where it's really gonna make a difference, I believe. And I don't know. I feel like Crawford, just that work ethic, maybe a little bit better than what Spence does. But again, Spence is just a good fighter too. So I really can't say nothing bad about both guys. Like I said, I respect both guys, and I think it's great for the sport. And we need more better fights like this. Best fight the best, and we're gonna see the sport continue to rise, and that's what we want.
There's part of me that sees like Crawford be able to counterpunch and counter real well. There's another part that sees me just him being drowned out by activity of Spence. Spence walking him down and just bop, 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 bop.
That's the way I see it. Crawford is a very dangerous counterpuncher. Yeah, he can land that shot from different angles and switch and land. But then Spence has got that high work rate. He's got that size. I think he's a little bit bigger. That high guard and the body work, the level change could make a big difference. Just gonna have to wait and see.
If I were to give you $1,000 cash right now, who would you put your money on? A draw. I'll put it as a draw, and I'll do it again. Yeah, put it as a draw. I wonder what the odds are on a draw.
That's what I'm saying. If I'm betting the 1,000, I'll double your 1,000. I'll put my 1,000 as well, and I'll go a draw.
I think Crawford's gonna do a number on him. He's stylistically he's more diverse. He has better technique. He moves around more, you know. And I love Spence. I mean, he's a great fighter, but Crawford is he knows how to change it up, switch it up. He has A, B, C, and D game plans. Spence has A, B, C, but he's maybe missing D.
What about
you know what I'm saying?
Though, of Spence?
Yeah, Spence is a big guy, man.
Yeah,
That's a big. Yeah, that's another big. So I mean, it's a 50-50 fight.
Yeah.
You know, but I have to give Crawford the edge.
Hell of a fight. It's a fight that the boxing world want to see, and it's a fight that both boxers want. They both want to fight each other to show that they're the best at that weight class and possibly the best in the sport right now. I got close relationships with Terence, and I got a very close relationship with Errol as well. I'm a little bit more closer to Errol Spence than I am with Terence, but you know, in that fight, you know, of course I'm with Errol, you know, because I'm just more close with Errol. You know, it's going to be a great fight, and you know, I just can't wait till they really make it happen. You know, boxing need it, and I think this is going to be a trilogy, and afterwards, both of them can retire and go off in the sunset as one of the greatest in boxing to ever do it.
I think that there's two narratives out there. I think, or really there's one narrative. That narrative is that Terence Crawford can do more things in the ring. He's got more tools in his toolbox. And even though Errol Spence is a basic boxer, he's the most fundamentally sound boxer in the world. I do agree with that, but Errol's got more in his arsenal as well. And I think that we've never been able to see him pull out everything that he's had to use. Terence has been in the ring with guys who have done different things, and he's had to present other things go into his toolbox. But I do think that from an X's and O's standpoint, it's all a matter of what are you going to do this round, because they both have the ability to make adjustments, and they both have the ability to be aggressive. They both have the ability to fight off of the back foot, counterpunch. I mean, even from, again, the X's and O's standpoint, this is an outstanding fight because they both have A+ in every box. And it's just, yeah. I honestly think that we're going to see probably 3 different strategies from both of them throughout the course of a 12-round fight, maybe even 4 or 5.
So plan A through D.
You can ask Bradman and you can ask Virgil. I mean, having 4 or 5 different game plans within one fight is probably impossible. But I mean, both of these guys have to have all of that in order to win the fight. And I'm definitely gonna paint this picture the correct way. When I fought Errol, going into that fight, I said I need everything to beat this guy. I can't leave anything at the gym. I can't leave anything at home. I had to take everything in order to beat this guy. And I think about 5 rounds went by, and just a simple move, a pullback counter, and I counterpunched his jab with my jab. And he shook his head and he said something. And I said, oh, I got you. And what I realized in that moment was he's not as smart, not as intellectually sound as I thought he was going to be. And that seemed to kind of carry through the entire fight. I felt like I was a step ahead of Errol the entire fight, all the way up until that knockdown moment. And that was surprising to me. I thought that Errol was going to be more intelligent in the ring, and I thought that simple pullback counter move. It's one thing to get hit with it, like, you know, things happen. But for him to acknowledge it and show how frustrated he was in that moment, and then I started to see other moments of frustration as well. When we talked about this fight years ago, I said, well, Terence the smarter fighter, he's going to win this fight. But I think that ever since this accident that Errol has sustained, and I think that having to come back from that and having to just grow up and get rid of a lot of things in his life, I think that he's a smarter fighter now than he was when we fought in 2019. And I don't think that there's going to be any surprises for either guy in the ring. There weren't any surprises for me when I fought Terence. Everything that came to me was everything that I thought was coming and expected the whole 9. And I think that one little stain, for the sake of words, that Errol had back in the day, 2019, when we fought, I believe that stain is gone too. So I don't think either guy is going to be surprised at all.
Who do you favor? Between Spence and Crawford.
Crawford and Spence, Spence and Crawford. Spence.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Spence is a much bigger fighter on fight night. And without getting into any details beyond that, I think his style is one that will lead him to the victory.
A lot of people mention the size, that he'll just, because he's bigger and he's such a volume puncher, that he'll end up overwhelming Crawford and kind of drown him out the longer the fight goes. You as a coach, do you kind of see that as well when you analyze that fight?
If that's the way he chooses to fight him, I think that, yeah, he could do something to that effect. But he's the type of guy that uses his size and his jab very well. And he will, he will impose his will on you for those rounds for as long as it lasts. I think he goes the distance, but I think he wins.
On the flip side of that, people have said, look, Ugas countered Spence, kind of buzzed him. If Crawford does that, we may see Spence go down because...
No? Spence ain't going down. Not happening. Not happening.
What?
No,
Why?
He's not going down. It's not happening.
If Ugas was able to buzz him, what happens if Crawford buzzes him?
Listen, he's not going down. He's a dog.
Yeah.
I was working with him way before he ever fought Sean.
Yeah.
So, I've seen him do this for quite a few years since the amateurs. He has the ability to win that fight, and just about any other guy that comes along as well. As long as as long as he wants to do it.
Given your experience fighting Terence, how do you like his chances in that fight against Spence?
I got Terence winning that fight unanimously. Yeah, not by stoppage, because I see Spence is a very tough, tricky fighter. I think he just breaks down a fight so easily, does Crawford. I remember with the speed I had, bang, 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 I'm throwing them combinations in, and he was making me miss by inches, and then just moving back and tapping me, and just catching me every time, catching me with little shots and frustrating me. And I thought to myself, wow, this guy, he's so precise, and his timing was on point. Obviously, after the fight, I went and joined his camp, and we spoke about it, and even at times I just sit there and watch him train, how he trained, and he's so precise. Like he is probably one of the best fighters I've ever seen. He reminds me a little bit of Andre Ward. I used to watch and just stand and watch him train on shadowbox, and the way he does things slow, and every punch it means something. And I could see that in Crawford as well. That's why both of them are probably in our era, our generation of boxing, are one of the best fighters, and they are one of the best out there. But it was amazing to share camp with him, and to be back in America again as well, because I love being in America, training over there, doing all the press, media, fights over there. But obviously, because the fights were more in England after that, it was just nice just to go there and do a training camp.
Spence Crawford, we finally got it.
It's the best sporting event that can be made.
How does Spence deal with Terence's switch hitting, and vice versa? How does Crawford deal with Spence's pressure and body?
That's what they're there to find out. The tough thing for Crawford is that Spence has a very high work rate, and we've seen Spence win behind a jab and defense on a world-class level. He's also a real hard hitter, and he's twitchy, and he's very aggressive. So usually Crawford likes to study a guy for a couple rounds, and then he kind of, okay, now I got it, and then he does it. But against Spence, you might have to hurt him or knock him out, because by the time you turn around, and if Crawford messes around, he can be down 4-1 after 5 rounds, and not against the guy who's looking to survive, against the guy who's looking to beat you up. On the other hand, Spence also has to worry about the fact that he's been, he's been through a lot in his life so far. And Crawford, although he also has been really about boxing for a lot of years now. Usually that guy will have the advantage in the moment of truth. And Crawford's always made adjustments. He's probably the best adjusting fighter in the sport.
But to push back on that, Spence has been through a lot, but have you seen any deterioration in his game overall, or?
Deterioration is hard to say, but there's been deterioration. I can't say that. I can't say there's evidence for that. I can say that he hasn't. I'm trying to think of what's Spence's most impressive outing, right?
Maybe Kell Brook.
Kell Brook, because Kell Brook did his best to Kell Brook was coming off an impressive performance, though it was a loss, where he got his face broken, right, in a higher division. But Spence really applied himself very well in that fight. The Sean Porter fight was a modern classic. But then again, Sean Porter, though he was a little fresher at the time, gave Spence a better fight than he gave Crawford.
Two guys that are looking to cement their legacies versus each other in the welterweight division. Right. Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford. I know you're a Texas guy. Maybe we can try to get you to speak objectively, though. What do you think about that matchup if they get together?
I think it's a great matchup, man. I'm super excited about that fight, too. That's the fight that everybody wants to see, and I hope that these guys make it happen soon. I think Errol's ready to go, and I think we're waiting on Crawford. I think it's a hell of a fight, even though I go way back with Derek James. We won the National Junior Olympics together. We've been always in contact with each other. He's a great trainer. He's done really good for himself as a trainer. I followed Errol Spence as an amateur because my older son, Raul Marquez Jr., was a fighter too, so we followed Errol Spence from the amateur days. And, of course, Crawford, he's a beast too. No, he's a very talented fighter. I think it's a hell of a fight. And if you're asking me who I'm going to go with, I go with Spence. I think Errol's a grinder, man. He comes forward and he fights like a Mexican, he breaks you down with body shots. He's tough. I think it's going to be tough at the beginning, the first half of the fight, but I think the second half of the fight, he'll break down Crawford and come up winning. I just think he's got that dog in him. I think he's tough. He's got the experience. He's been in bigger caliber fights. He's been in that kind of environment. Crawford has too, but not at Spence's level. I just think, not taking anything away from Crawford, he's a hell of a fighter too, but it's going to be a great fight. But I'm going with Spence.
Let me ask you this, Antonio. This fight with Spence and Crawford, I've heard a lot of people say what you just told me, the counterpunching, that, hey, that could really be the difference in this fight. But I've heard also a lot of people say Spence might be too big, he might be too active, and he might drown out Terence via activity. Yes, Terence will be able to land those counter punches, but he'll be landing 2, and Spence will be landing 5, 6. Take a break, 5, 6, and just keep at him and at him and at him.
Well, if Crawford can't hurt Spence in this fight, he has no way to win, I believe. I think he has to hurt Spence to get his respect, to get his, respect and make him, cautious a little bit by pushing on that gas and just coming with no regard. So it's important that Crawford get his respect early in that fight. And you got to do that anyway. You got to clip that guy with a shot he don't see to let him know it can get hazardous in here real quick. You know what I mean? If you don't put that in your opponent's head anyway, then you ain't doing what you're supposed to do. So in that first 2 rounds, 3 rounds, you got to find a way to crack your opponent. That's mandated. You got to do that to slow the fight down anyway. Because the guy, if you don't get your respect, the guy gonna run over you anyway. That goes without saying.
Man, that's the best fight you can make in boxing, bro. That's it. That's literally the best fight you can make in boxing. It's nothing else bigger than in the sport of boxing right now. I truly don't know who's gonna win. One thing I could tell you is, earlier I was saying that it was all Spence for me. Before, a few years ago, it was all Spence. And now I'm like, man, I really don't know who's gonna win, because I feel like both of them. I can see that Errol walk him down, hit him with the jab, beat him up to the body, and potentially hit Crawford with some big shots and maybe stop him. And then on the same token, I can see Crawford boxing around and catching Errol with some stuff too, and switching and catching him with some stuff. So that's a big fight, and I really don't know I really don't know who's gonna win that fight. I really truly like sometimes I know for the reporters we'll say we don't know, and then we'll go behind your back and say this person gonna win. For this one, bro, I will tell you off the camera, like I really don't know who's gonna win this fight. I cannot pick who's gonna win this fight.
Yeah, it seems to be everyone is split, though. I've noticed from just me talking to trainers, a lot of the trainers are favoring Crawford, but because of how versatile he is, his ring IQ. But I just keep thinking, man, Errol's activity has to play a big part in this fight.
I think, I mean, yeah, his activity, just how strong he is. You know, he has a really hard like right jab. You know, so it's like he does walk people down with that right jab all the time, and he can box, and his activity is so high. So I mean, like I said, bro, it really is a great fight. Like, and the thing is, Crawford, another thing with him, he's just a killer, and he really believes in himself. You know, he just don't back down from nothing, nobody. He really believes in himself, and that plays a factor too.
How have the training sessions been working alongside Errol? Like how intense is it? Like how bad does he want this?
He want it bad. You know, he training. I feel like he trains for every fight like it's a championship fight. You know, we ain't sleeping on no fighters. You know, like everybody is woke and caught. You know, we woke and conscious of who we fighting, and you know, he been working hard, but he always work hard. So it ain't like, oh, he then turned it up. He always got his level turned up. So I feel like you know, he may have added a few different things, you know, but for the most part, the grind is the same. You know, still grinding and working hard.
The big question I've heard from a few people is, how is Terence going to handle Errol's power? What do you make of that dynamic in this fight?
I feel like it's going to play a big factor. You know, I feel they both got power. You know, both fighters got power, but I feel like it's just it's not all about the power that Errol got. You know, he know how to use it and he know what to do with it. So that's the difference.
From what you've seen in camp, does the fight go all 12, or do you see a stoppage?
It's one of those fights, man. It could go either way. It can go either way. But it's looking like it might be a stoppage. Yeah.
Do you have an inkling, like late, mid?
Hey, it might be a stoppage.
How's that stoppage look?
A one-sided ass whooping.
We're gonna get some toe-to-toe action. What I got from Errol Spence is a very big welterweight. He's obviously a natural southpaw. You know, he's big, he's strong, he goes to the body good. You know, his IQ is very good in that ring. You know, the thing for me is in activity. He's had at the recent times. You know, I think that, you know, but like I say, you know, he's one of obviously Sean, Errol, and Crawford, and Golovkin. I have to say the best I've been in with, and you know, they've got that aura about them. They've got that. You know, they've got the X factor. You know, both fighters. But I think Terence Crawford, for me, he can box either style, orthodox, southpaw. You know, he's a very sharp shooter. He's a very good finisher. You know, I think the stronger guys, Errol Spence. But like I said, it's a small margin. You know, in this fight, it's going to come down to, like Virgil Hunter said, who prepared the best. You know, and who's going to go in there and do. Like he's just pointed out, you know, not let the other fighter do what he's come to do, you know, and just be as, you know, like Sean said as well, they're going to need every game plan to go into this fight. They need absolutely everything they've learned all their career, all their life in this fight, because this is the real test. Who number one is in the division. You know, when I got in with Terence Crawford, you know, I didn't expect him to be as. I knew we were going to be sharp, but I think just the way that he could switch in a fight so naturally, you know, against obviously a world-class fighter and be so relaxed, orthodox and southpaw. And just the angles, what he was chucking his shots, you know, are surprising. You know, very sharp puncher. You know, he's not I don't want to say he's like Errol Spence's more grinding, more thumping kind of power. It is more sharp and snapping. Terence is, you know, and surprising. You know, that's what what I take from them two, you know. And he does get frustrated, Errol Spence. He does get frustrated, you know, in the fight what we had. You know, we're catching him with shots. He gets frustrated. He shows it, you know. But like I say, you know, we're talking about two, you know, A-star fighters, you know, and it's like I say, it's going to come down to many things in this fight, and they're going to have to bring absolutely every part of their game to get the victory.
Andre, we talk Hall of Famers. We talk about lineage of boxing. Huge fight in the fight game. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Tell us your thoughts on the bout, and if it is made, who you leaning toward?
Man, I'm not leaning toward anybody. I can make an argument for both guys, you know what I mean? And both of those dudes are my brothers. I stay out of the politics in terms of, you know, which guy beat, you know, the other guy. It's really too close to call, but that's how we know we got a mega fight on our hands. And I see a lot of promoters and managers saying, oh, it's not going to do this amount of pay-per-views. It's not. That's absolutely untrue. That fight, when it's signed and sealed and delivered, it's going to do numbers. It's going to shock a lot of people, and it's going to deliver you know, an all-time great welterweight matchup. And I don't know, I'm not involved in the negotiation, but I would assume that it's a, you know, rematch clause in there. So we got 2 fights for sure if the fight gets done, maybe 3 if they split. I just want to see it, man. I don't necessarily think they need it for their legacy, but it wouldn't hurt. And both guys make a lot of money, and I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
And Andre, if I can get you to put your fight fan cap on just for a minute, though, what does that fight mean for the history of boxing?
It's just another chapter, you know. The welterweight division alone is rich in history, and they would just be adding another chapter to an already, you know, decorated weight class. Depending on how the fight turns out will determine how it's talked about, how it's viewed many years from now. But, man, that's a can't-miss fight. You got 2 dudes like that in their prime with those kind of styles. I don't think it's genuine bad blood. 2 dudes that really don't like each other, don't have each other's number for the most part. But it's the competitiveness is crazy. And it's going to produce. And I think it's going to speak for itself, and I think it's going to be remembered for a very long time.
Terence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. Let me know, who's going to win this fight, Roy? Who's going to separate themselves in this?
Let me just say it like this. First of all, I have the utmost respect for both fighters. I've watched Bud because I worked at HBO way more than I watched Terrence. I watched Errol. So Terrence, to me, has shown me more capabilities in the boxing ring. He changes up more than any fight I've seen probably out of the fight right now, besides a Lomachenko, a young Lomachenko, and Tyson Fury. Terence Crawford, Tyson Fury, and Lomachenko were probably the 3 best at changing when they need to change to make an adjustment in a fight. And that's what you call a pound-for-pound guy. Tank is learning and been doing a pretty good job of that as well, and so is Haney. So with that being said, I do like both fighters. I give Terence the edge because of his innate ability to adjust and make adjustments on the fly. But you can't count Errol out because Errol is a big welterweight, and Errol believes and applies nothing but hardcore pressure. Pressure busts pipes. So if you can't deal with that pressure pipe, it could be a problem. But I just have not seen Terence yet in a situation that he didn't figure out how to solve the puzzle they put in front of him. So it'd be hard for me to go against Terence Crawford. But like I said, if there's a formidable enough opponent or a guy who can apply enough pressure to make a change, it would be Errol Spence. Hence why we want to see the fight.
On paper right now, and talent-wise, both of them been sort of idle. I see this fight being right now a pick 'em, leaning more towards Spence based on style, but Crawford is alive, anxious, ready to prove to the world, ready to prove to the naysayers, everybody. I believe Crawford got the bigger chip on his shoulder. I think that Spence is the most talented one out of the 2, but that won't be all it for this fight to be won or lost by either guys.
It's a really close fight. They both. Let me just say this first. I think they can both win the fight.
Yeah.
I lean more towards Crawford.
If we're going based off of their last fights, I'm going with Crawford. I feel like he has a slight edge right now. But like I said, I feel like they both have what it takes to beat one another. So I really can't pick a winner.
Yeah, it's weird. I've heard trainers like go back and forth. Like I heard some trainers say like Errol's gonna be too big, too active, and Crawford is not gonna be able to deal with that. And I've heard others like, look, he's gonna like pinpoint counter punches on Spence, or like he might end up dropping Spence.
Yeah. So it could very well play out either way that you just said. That's the beauty of boxing. You never know what's gonna happen.
How do you think they would approach the fight? Like in your opinion?
Well, first and foremost, they're going to approach it as if it's the biggest fight of their life, because honestly, it probably is. So they're going to take it very seriously. And when they go in, I imagine they're going to feel each other out. Like fights usually go, and then it'll pick up. I think it'll pick up really fast.
Like with 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there?
I think it'll pick up like in the third round.
In the third round, that
I
early?
think so, because they're just too, in my opinion, exciting fighters, or it can be the exact opposite. That's what boxing's all about. We really don't know. I'm really bad with predictions.
Well,
So
but you're good at breaking stuff down. Because
yeah.
The Bivol one, you told me like, hey, don't be surprised if Bivol wins. Like he can win that fight.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and
mean-
everyone was like, nah, there's no way Bivol can win that fight.
Yeah, I
You know?
mean, so yeah.
I just have a feeling that like Spence is gonna jump on him like right away, like impose himself like
Yeah,
right
you never-
away.
I feel like that might be a bad thing to do.
You think about
He might run into a setup or something. You know, that's what Crawford's good at. So
Spence and Crawford. I know you've been saying you want Spence. I would imagine you would want the winner. But
No, I don't want the winner. I just
You don't
want
want the
Spence.
winner. You just want Spence.
Yeah, Crawford's probably gonna win, but like I want Spence anyways.
Why do you feel
Crawford doesn't sell. It's a waste of my time.
Yeah. Why do you feel Crawford's gonna win? In your opinion, what do you see there?
I mean, when it's southpaw usually goes to one with the better jab, and like Spence has a great jab, but it's an active jab. It's not a snappy jab. Crawford has a snappy jab. Crawford's way more snappy fighter.
Spence has said that he doesn't feel Crawford's durable. Do you see that too, by chance?
I mean, Spence got hurt by Ugas with a slap. So I mean, Crawford isn't the most durable person either, but I mean, it's like I said, I don't fucking know. I don't give a fuck really who wins. I really don't give a fuck about any of that shit. So
Yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. We've seen both of these fighters start off slow, right? So we could see a little bit of a chess match for 3 rounds going into the 4th round where somebody should try to implement some dominance. I think it's going to be really important for somebody to go ahead and control the pace, control the rhythm, and sneak some punches in. Who can touch who. Boxing, the definition is to hit and not get hit. So who's going to touch who first? How much of it is it going to be a scoring match, and how much of it is it going to be I'm the bigger, badder man kind of event? I heard the little something on ESPN. They already did a nice little thing. Got the 2 fighters talking to each other. And, they're saying that it has the potential to be Hagler-Hearns. And, I mean, we know what that really means. And we don't see a lot of that ever in boxing today because, the number 1 rule in boxing, the golden rule, what's the golden rule?
I don't know. What is the golden rule?
Come on,
rule
baby.
to you?
You in boxing, baby. It's the golden rule.
Don't get hit, right? Don't get hit. Don't get hit.
Protect yourself at all times.
Yeah, there you go. Protect yourself at all times.
And so with understanding of the defense, with watching Floyd as being almost like a mentor to so many fighters, regardless of if they ever went into his training camps or not, so many fighters looked at Floyd. Floyd was the pinnacle of boxing, and he was hitting and not getting hit, hitting and not getting hit. So it's just kind of up the IQ and the awareness of many fighters, unless if you're stuck to where that's never been your strategy, right? That's never been the way that you box, But for people like Spence, people like Crawford, this is like Lomachenko. This is Olympic style boxing. That's what Floyd was. That's what Ali was. That's what Oscar De La Hoya was, So this is just the top pinnacle of boxing, the real art we're gonna see everything. You know, we're gonna see ring generalship. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna see great defense, great offense, and we're gonna see which one of the two is truly the better man. So with that said, you know, it's fun to talk about because it's hard not to like Crawford, right? Don't you feel like that? You know, like when you talk about it out loud, you're like, you know, he's a southpaw. You know, he's right. He's orthodox. He's a southpaw. He changes up. He's got power here. He's got power there. Fast twitch, reflexes, athleticism. There's something that we've never seen Spence fight. And to me, that's a puncher boxer, somebody who's truly athletic, you know, similar to a Crawford and a Keith Thurman. You know, there's a style that Crawford Thurman bring to the table that I think Spence has never had presented to him in his professional career. Now, with that said, you know, we still know Spence might not be fancy, but, you know, he's been holding it down and he's the truth. The truth is he is not easy to beat. He's never been easy to beat. And no matter how much you like Crawford, it might not be an easy match. It could be the toughest match of his career, you know? So I just like playing with it. I'm not in the fight. They could both knock each other out. Boom, we can get double KO, okay? Boom, I don't care what happens. Slap-a-dap-a-doo, you know? I don't care what happens, you know? It's just, it's fun to talk about. I'm outside the ring. I'm a spectator. You know, until they put me in the ring and I got to do what I got to do, I'm just spectating. I'm guesstimating the whole thing, just like you, just like any other boxing fan at any barbershop that's going to be talking for the weeks that come into this tremendous fight, you know? So, I mean, the boxing world should be excited. They should be able to breathe. All them people, calm down, kid, calm down. It's coming, all right? It's coming.
If I were to give you $100, who would you put it on?
Oh, it's so tough. I've been asking myself that question too, you know. I want a little piece of the action, you know. I feel like it puts you in the fight on a different level, you know. You win with them, you lose with them, you know. It's tough. Like I said, when you talk out loud, unless if you really love that Spence is the bigger guy. If you love the fact, if you love the idea that Crawford has never been hit by a true welterweight. I know he fought Porter, but Porter, the way Porter's been fighting in his career in these, since I knew him from the amateurs, you know, 12 rounds, to be a 12-round fighter, he put in more effort and he took away from the exertion of that one-punch knockout. I used to see Sean drop people at the 165 division in the amateurs with headgears on. So I know the boy can punch, but I fought him. A lot of people fought him. His strategies changed throughout the years. You know, Spence, the way he's got that long jab, the way he loads up with that left uppercut and his left hook, his right hook, these are just some real powerful punches coming from a technically bigger, stronger man. You know, so if you like that philosophy, and I know, in my opinion, neither one of them have really gotten their chin clipped, you know, and evidence to their defense and their boxing abilities. But at the end of the day, man, something's going to get through come, I believe, July 29th. And I'm just waiting to see, you know, who hits who first. You know, they're both defensive, but they're not perfect. They both like to trade. And when they both trade, just like anything else, when you're in the fire, that's when you're the most vulnerable. So it's going to be a game of inches. This is championship level. This comes down to, you know, the last putt on the 18th hole. These are minute details that will separate these two great fighters.
I think just him being like basic, like him being basic and just staying behind his jab with the high guard, you know, that keep him at that high point, you know, at the high level. And the body work.
If you were to say one thing that he must do on fight night to have success against Terence Crawford, what would that be?
Pressing back, start fast.
To start fast. Pressing back
and start fast.
What about for Terence Crawford? What do you think is the most special part about Terence Crawford's game?
I don't really know. You know, I guess you could say him switching. I guess.
And if you had to say one thing that Terence has to do to be successful against EJ on the 29th, what would that be?
I feel like he got to start fast. He can't start slow either. You know, I feel like he got to start fast and use his jab to set shots up.
Again, no market erosion. You gotta love both. They're both undefeated. You gotta love Spence as far as size. He's the naturally bigger guy. You hear that all the time. And he's a big welterweight. He's a horse. You know, if he was in the NFL, he'd probably be a fullback, you know, because he'll run you over if he has to. He's strong. But he's also more than that. He's got the pedigree, the amateur pedigree in the Olympics. He's got all that experience, all that with international experience, with different styles. And when he beat Mikey Garcia, a smaller man, but when he beat him, he took Mikey Garcia's greatest asset away from him, his ability to control range and box, to counterpunch. Everyone thought, all right, Mikey Garcia is going to look to counter the bigger guy, catch him come in, step out, you know, all of that. And he couldn't do it. Spence dominated. You know why? Because his jab. Because he's got a better IQ. Everyone gives Crawford the credit, and he deserves it. But Spence has a pretty good one, too. He's not dumb. He uses the jab. He out-jabbed Mikey Garcia, who, if he had an edge, it was supposed to be that he was smaller, he was faster, he'd be a little bit trickier in those kind of dimensions, use his jab, as I said, set traps. He couldn't do that because Spence took that game away from him with his southpaw jab. So he can go get you. He can go to the body well, which is very important when you're fighting a smaller guy, naturally smaller, to impose your strength on a smaller man's body by going to his body. Very important. He can set, he can counter, he can box. And as I said, he can just go track you down. So he's pretty dimensional too. Crawford, a lot of people like him, his boxing IQ. He's dimensional. Again, he can fight with you. He can box. He likes to control range with his longer arms, where you know he can keep you at a range. Good for him, bad for you. Make you pay for real estate. You try to get in. He goes back 4 inches. You know, as you come in 2 inches, and now he makes you pay for the real estate with a combination of punches. And he carried his power up with him, which is really important. He started at junior lightweight, went to lightweight, or started at lightweight, went to junior welter, and then went to welter. But he carried his power. Not everyone does that. So you have an argument, which is good for both guys to have edges to win the fight. And that makes for a competitive fight, for a fight that you can really sell and you can kind of, you know, the fans can really get into. That you can make that kind of argument either way. But where it separates for me is that Crawford, and I've watched him. I actually did a piece for ESPN years ago where I broke down his early fights, and I had him in a studio where we put a boxing ring and we watched the fights together. And I said to him in some of his formative fights on his way up, I said, one was against Gamboa. Gamboa was a former world champ. He was definitely a little past himself, but it was the first real test with a name for Crawford on his way up. And this is a guy in Gamboa who was a gold medalist from the great national Cuban team. You know, they had to defect to come over here, have a life in this great country. And he did. He came over here, he won a world title, he had a life. For his family that he wouldn't have had, quite frankly, in Cuba. And he was very fast. And again, he was diminished a little bit. He was going towards the twilight of his career, but he still had something. And Crawford's winning the fight. And then I forget what round it was, somewhere on the 7th, 8th, whatever it was, he gets caught. He gets caught, I believe it was with a right hand. And he gets caught, he gets wobbled. And as he's wobbled and he's going backwards. I'm watching. I break it down to slow motion before I got with him to make sure I had it right. Because when I saw it, I said, holy smokes, am I really seeing this? Because nobody ever brought it up. Am I really seeing this? Let me run it back. And as he went back, being wobbled, he knew that he got caught because he was in the southpaw stance. He switched hits a lot. And he was in the southpaw stance. And he got caught a right hand. So as he's falling back, he turns to orthodox. Now he knows that he won't be as vulnerable to the right hand, number one. And number two, he knows the inclination, the instinct of Gamboa is to load up on the right hand now, to land it again. And he might get a little heavy with it, a little fat with it. And if he does, he's got the left hook now from the orthodox position that he didn't have before. He's got it there to counter the right hand and catch him. And I'll be damned, he did that. So I ran it over with Spence. I said, did you know you did this? And he looks at it, he smiled, he goes, no, not till now. I said, you, my friend, and I only give compliments if I try to anyway, if they're deserved. And I said, you, my friend, might be the most instinctive, and there's a hell of a compliment coming from me. I've seen a lot of fights. You might be the most instinctive fighter I've ever seen. I've seen a few, and a lot of them were back in the 30s and the 40s on tape, quite frankly, and the 80s, but where boxing was very healthy, the best fighting the best. But I said, you might be the most instinctive fighter I've ever seen. And you remind me of something Customato used to tell me, where he said, Teddy, the great ones, he said, they make it up as they do it. He said, kind of like a Louis Armstrong on the horn, that he just invents a new note that nobody heard until he just did it. Or Jimi Hendrix on the guitar. He just hits a string in a different way that, whoa, that's new. I never heard that before. And that's what I was seeing when I saw him do that. I think that ability, that trait of being that instinctual, mixed with, he might be the greatest switch hitter I've ever seen, where he switches from lefty to righty and doesn't lose any. He's like Mickey Mantle was as a switch hitter in baseball. He could hit with power or average from either side of the plate. And that's what Crawford does. And he's he's a junkyard dog. He's a junkyard dog as far as being mean and being, vicious when you got to be vicious in a vicious sport, where he's got that mentality. He's got that pit bull mentality that he got to do what he got to do no matter what. Now, I'm not saying Spence don't have some of these qualities, but to the degree that I've recognized it with Crawford, it's at a very special degree. And because of that, yeah, the other guy's bigger. Yeah, the other guy can be relentless sometimes. And yeah, he has a better IQ than people give him credit for, because he used the jab and he had that great pedigree from the amateurs with the yeah, all of that. And I love the way he conducts himself outside the ring and in the ring. All of it, both of them. But for what I just laid out, I'm taking Crawford. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere, it'll probably go a decision, but I wouldn't be surprised. And look, the argument for Spence, he goes to the body really well, go to that skinnier body of the smaller man.
And his volume. Volume, yeah.
Right, that you're going to get to him. I get it. But you know what? Crawford's going to have something to say while you're trying to get to him. With an uppercut, with whatever it is, a counter shot, from lefty or from righty. He does carry the power. And he is that junkyard dog where, even though both of them are millionaires now, and I know it's important to both of them in a personal level anyway, which is supposed to be in a legacy way, but he's one of those guys that, kind of like Michael Jordan, where, no matter how much money, no matter how many, accolades that Michael Jordan obviously, put on the trophy shelf and accomplished in his career, every time he got on the court, it was like he was stealing money from his mother. I mean, like, you know, he's gonna destroy you. And like, where does that come from? Wherever it comes from, Crawford has some of that. And because of those things, I would have to. I'm going with Crawford. And like I started to say, I like a decision, but I wouldn't be shocked. As good as the chin is, and the toughness of Spence, the relentless ability of Spence, but I wouldn't be shocked if Crawford hurt him late in the fight.
Errol Spence is not going to be able to handle T. T want Errol Spence bad. But PBC or whatever you're talking about, you know, like on the other side of the street, there is no other side of the street. The best should always fight the best. And if they fight, T told him, he said he will stop him. And if he said he's going to stop somebody, he's going to do it.
What sets him apart from EJ?
His power. He got more power than what they think they have. T hit hard with both hands. And his movement, his fluidity, how he moves around in the ring. He don't get hit if he don't want to get hit. If he can go in there and box any fighter the way he fought Prescott, ain't no one beat him. Spence ain't never fought nobody like T. And if they do fight, he gonna find out. And he gonna see why T is number one.
Take me back to when Terence was little. What was Terence like as like a 5-6-year-old kid?
Playful, kid around, but you know, I used to take him over to my friend's house to wrestle the other kids. He would slam the heck out of them. And it'd be so funny. And they older than him. He was like about, what, 7, 8 years old, and he would slam like 10, 11-year-olds. He's just, hey, that's my son. And when he was 1 year old, I had him hitting on my hands, doing hooks, uppercuts, and everything. Him and his sisters, all of them got hands, all 3 of them. And I always told his mama, we got $1 million baby. And that ain't no doubt.
How fortunate do you feel having Terence Crawford as a son, man? I mean, I know it's a lot raising children, but to see you guys' work, you and Miss Deborah work come to fruition, man. Talk to me about that.
Well, all I could tell you, you know, like, hey, I always knew he was going to be a world champion. I told his mom when he came out with his hands balled up, we had $1 million baby. Ain't that right, Kay? That's right. And look at him now.